Good day and welcome back to the Johnson Space Center for today's mission status briefing on Flight Day 6 of Discovery's final mission to the International Space Station. A busy day in orbit and here on the ground, and with us today to discuss all of those activities are David Korth, the ISS Orbit 1 Flight Director for STS-133 ULF-5, and Kenny Todd, the Mission Integration and Operations Manager for the International Space Station Program and the Chairman of the ISS Mission Management Team. And we'll start off with David.
All right, good day to everyone. Orbiter status, everything's looking really well with the orbiter. There's been a lot of discussion over the last couple of days about can we add a day to the mission or not, and the management team decided yesterday that indeed we will be adding a day to the docked mission. We're going to focus on PMM outfitting, and I'm happy to say the PMM is now part of the International Space Station. We were actually fortunate enough right around the time that we were bolting, putting final bolting in place, we passed over Turin, Italy. So it was kind of a poetic justice for PMM. Right now on the overall mission, we're about 60% complete with the physical item transfer. As far as the duration of the mission, we're calling it a 12+1+2 mission at this point, O2 limited. We still have a lot more margin, so folks are still discussing how we want to make use of that for the rest of the mission. From today's timeline, as you probably know, and I was fortunate enough, we all supported the crew in getting ahead on the plan. The PMM is installed and is part of the station. The crew is working now on the initial vestibule outfitting and pressurization with the intent of the hatch opening and ingress later this evening Houston time. Per the nominal timeline, if you will, it would have been about 5:58 p.m., but we're optimistic that will happen a little sooner. We had great support today on orbit from a variety of people on the arm. Mike Barrett, Nicole Stott, using the SSRMS to grapple the PMM in the payload bay, bring it out, berth it to ISS. Katie and Eric Bowe working the CBM ops to get us through bolting, our ground control team to take care of the final bolting and seal the interface up, and then Katie and Mike Barrett ungrappled the arm and put it in position for EVA-2 tomorrow, and that all went really well. In the background, so to speak, in the background, the Russian team is working hard on the replacement of the Vozduk system, their CO2 scrubbing system. That seems to be going well on plan. And as I mentioned, tonight we'll be obviously getting ready for EVA number 2 tomorrow. Camp out begins at 7:33 p.m. local, or GMT 60 days, 01 hours, 33 minutes is when we begin the O2 10-2 pressurization. Hygiene break tomorrow, 5:03 local AM. GMT 61 days, 11 hours, 3 minutes. Egress is targeted for 9:23 AM tomorrow local Houston time. A GMT of 61 days, 15 hours, 23 minutes, with an ingress 21 hours, 43 minutes GMT around 3:43 p.m. A number of different activities we have on the plan tomorrow. For the EVA, we've accomplished all what we call the high priority objectives. One of the first things we'll do is on the EVA is the ammonia venting from the pump module that's on the ESP-2, and then we'll work off a number of other items. In parallel with that, we're going to begin the PMM unpacking, and a couple of the main things we're trying to get to tomorrow is a data cable that we want to get out of the PMM to provide a data connection into the ISS directly, hardwired data connection to the HTV, which is on the Node 2 Zenith. And we've been operating with an RF link between HTV and the US elements, so we're looking forward to that hardline connection. And of course, the next thing is we'll be taking a lot of trash, or packing trash, a lot of items that came up in the PMM, have a lot of packing material structure to protect it for its ascent loads. So we're going to take that out, throw it in a HTV, and we're going to move the Robonaut block. We're going to take its packing foam off, and you'll get this big, large metal box that houses Robonaut. We'll be putting that in the lab for unpacking at a future date. Beyond that, mission is going really well. Like I mentioned, we're ahead of the timeline again today. We're looking forward to successful EVA-2 tomorrow, and of course, successful ingress this evening into the PMM. That's really all I had at this time, so if you want, I can take questions now.
Actually, we'll go on to Kenny first, and then we'll take questions here. Kenny?
Okay, well, it's great to be here with you today. We had the EVA yesterday. Everything went really well. They got us in a good position. The ops team and the crew did to go do the PMM install this morning. That all went very well. Congratulations to both the crew and the ops team. Look very much forward to getting into the PMM later this afternoon, early this evening, and get about the task of integrating that new module into the living space on board the space station. Then we turn the corner. We go, as Dave said, do the EVA tomorrow. We got a lot of what I would call kind of cats and dogs on that EVA, things that we've been tracking that we needed to get done for some time. So got a good opportunity to go get those tomorrow, and so we feel good about where we are there. From a program perspective, as most of you know, we're in what I'd term kind of a detailed choreography right now of vehicles coming to and from the space station. If you're keeping a scorecard, we had the HTV get here at the end of January. We had the ATV show up last week, and then this past weekend our shuttle friends came for a visit. We're very much happy to have all those vehicles. When you look forward, Scott Kelly and his Soyuz crew with Sasha and Oleg, they'll be returning here in a couple of weeks on the 16th of March. And then towards the end of March, we'll let the HTV go, and then we'll look forward a couple of weeks after that to the ULF-6 mission. So as you can see, we're right in the middle of what's again a pretty large number of vehicles coming to and from station, and so we're spending a lot of time getting ready to receive those vehicles and getting ready for them to depart. And as David said, we got a lot of work relative to configuring the PMM, unpacking it, getting it ready to receive additional cargo from around the station. And we want to make sure that as we go through that we don't compromise our ability to continue doing human research program type activities, things that you know we're put on station to do. And so with that in mind, I went to the shuttle program yesterday and asked them to consider adding a +1 day for us. Again, every time we have a shuttle visit, if we can take advantage of the extra crew members, we certainly want to do that. Leroy and the MMT considered that proposal and agreed to stay an extra day, and so we're very happy to have them stay. Again, with the focus being on trying to get the PMM in a good configuration as quick as we can. Another task that we looked at for use in this +1 day is what everybody refers to as this Soyuz flyabout. We asked the partnership to consider this possibility. We started this a couple of weeks ago. We identified all the forward work through the different partners that they had to go do to assess their readiness from a partner standpoint. We tracked that work through the ISS mission management team, and all the partners were doing their due diligence, going through their normal management processes that allow them to identify risk and do what they can to get those risks mitigated and get them put to bed. And so that process has been going on for the last week to 2 weeks. This morning, at this morning's station mission management team meeting, we had a plan to go do a go-no-go, to go do that Soyuz flyabout. Our Russian colleagues were first out of the chute this morning, and after doing their own due diligence and using their own independent processes within the Russian side of the house, they have determined that with 24 Soyuz, which is the vehicle we were going to use to do this fly around, that they are not in a position to recommend doing that flyabout. And their primary basis for it was because this particular vehicle is what they consider to be a new vehicle. It's what we call a Series 700 vehicle. And so this is its maiden flight. They had a flight program set aside for that particular vehicle, which had it coming to station, serving its 6-month term there, and then returning. And so basically with when we asked them to take a look at this request, and the amount of time they had to look at it, and the fact that they didn't have, before this vehicle was launched, an opportunity to go work this maneuver through their normal development and test planning, given that it's, again, a new vehicle, they came back to us and said they'd recommend not doing it. And from a mission management team perspective, we knew all along that it was critical for all partners to be able to go through their own processes and to get comfortable with doing this activity. And when we got that feedback from the Russians this morning, it wasn't necessarily what we were hoping to get back, but at the same point, I applaud the Russians for doing the right thing, not disregarding their own processes, but instead making sure that they do their due diligence the way they should, and bringing that back to the partnership. And so I accepted their recommendation. I opened that up for comments to the entire mission management team, and it was unanimous. There were no dissenting opinions to the Russian recommendation. We all placed a great amount of faith in the system that the Russians have to go make this decision on their side. And so as a mission management team, I asked that we cease all further activities with regard to discussions about a flyabout. I think in some ways this will allow the team now to get on with the rest of the mission. Everything we can take off their plate is a good thing. It allows them to stay focused on trying to get the things done that we need to do, that we had laid out for this mission for the last couple of years. And I'm happy to say I feel good about where we're at right now, and I think it was a good decision this morning, and I look forward to a good, successful conclusion to this docked mission with the shuttle guys, and we'll be ready to go do these next set of vehicle operations that I mentioned earlier. And that's all I have, unless you have any questions.
Okay, thanks, Kenny. We'll take questions here in Houston. We also have reporters at the Kennedy Space Center and on our phone bridge. So we'll start here in the back with Mark.
Oh, thank you, Mark Carreau for Aviation Week and Space Technology. And I had a couple questions for Ken Todd. Can you offer us sort of any new context on how the proposal for the flyabout and the picture came about, whether it was a proposal just from NASA or from 4 of the major partners? And would you foresee any occasion where this might be possible to do again, where you have worked with the other part? I know the shuttle probably, has a couple more occasions to come to the station. I just wonder if this is gone or whether it might work into a future flight plan. Thank you.
Okay. Let's see. So how it came about? Well, I will tell you, as an IMMT chairman, we were asked to go look at it. Certainly, to me, it came through the NASA channels. As we began discussing this with the partnership, I will tell you there was broad support. Our Russian colleagues worked very hard over the last couple of weeks to build a plan and to work it within their own system to see if they could get to the point where everybody was comfortable in the Russian segment world. The Europeans, again, very supportive. Our JAXA colleagues, very supportive, as well as our Canadian partners. So again, I think across the board, I don't know exactly where it came from, how it came to us, but I can tell you this: in the discussions that we had with the entire partnership, there was very broad support for doing this. I think in general, the community thought this was a really great thing to go do if we could go do it. As far as future possibilities, the choreography I talked about earlier, if you look at ULF-6, clearly the HTV will be gone by that time. And so I think where we're at today, if you look at the flight program and the way it's, if it plays out the way it's laid out today, we won't have the same number of visiting vehicles. And so whether that, again, we would want to take advantage of that is something we'll have to go look at. To be perfectly frank, we didn't know we would be here. When we put the shuttle plan in place, a year or so ago, we didn't realize that we weren't going to fly in November and we'd end up in February. So how that looks going forward, you never say never, but I would tell you right now, the way we have the flight program laid out, this is a unique opportunity that we had during this particular shuttle mission.
Bill?
Bill Horowitz, CBS. I just want to make sure I understand with the HTV there. I mean, my understanding, if you're coming off the POISC module and stuff, that HTV provided some shielding, I guess, from pluming, and you couldn't use another Soyuz for that. I mean, that was the only one that was available. Was the O1M vehicle?
Yeah. See, the issue that we have, the only other place we have the Soyuz right now is down on the FGB Nader side, and the issue that we had with that is there's a cone that we try to protect leaving the FGB Nader. In fact, when we depart any port, we have an understanding of what the worst case dispersions might be with the departure and try to make sure that we have good clearance. And with the shuttle docked to the PMA-2, the tail actually protrudes into that cone that we like to protect. So in general, we don't want to compromise. And I would tell you at this point, we don't want to compromise on that cone and those clearances. And so we don't really look at FGB Nader as an option at this point. That is a Series 200 vehicle that's there. The other thing that we have to consider is that's the newest vehicle that's arrived to station with that crew. And so, again, part of the job that we have to go do is we have to look at all the what ifs and what if you undocked this guy and couldn't get him back, then you brought your newest crew home. And so again, that all weighs into it. But I would tell you the primary reason we won't do anything with an FGB Nader location is because of the clearance issue.
And just a quick follow then, but
Sure.
The only reason that the O1M vehicle could be used is because HTV is on Harmony Zenith, and that provided you the same effect, I guess, going up.
I would tell you right now in the configuration that we're in with HTV on the Zenith and the shuttle where it's at, it provides good blockage for the windows. And so again, that if the opportunity were ever arise or we were to make a decision that we wanted to go attempt this again and HTV wasn't there, again, what we've got today is a point analysis. We'll basically have to go start over with the configuration and try to understand what it would mean to try to do it in even a slightly different configuration.
Other questions? Pete, over here.
Yeah, thanks. Pete Spots with the Christian Science Monitor. One of the, as we've been hearing about this throughout the week, one of the rationales was gathering of engineering data. Is that rationale strong enough to, suggest taking another crack at this, at a future time, or is it the alignment of the vehicles on top of that sort of made this the prime, the prime opportunity to do it?
Well, again, I think there was multiple reasons why this was going to be a good thing to go do. And clearly, photo documentation, whether it be used for engineering data or whether it be used for, the photograph for the ages, it doesn't. Still the configuration is what it is. As far as the use of Soyuz in the future to help with capturing engineering-related data and doing fly around, and I will tell you, every time we do one of these things, we learn a lot, not just about the vehicles, but about our processes that we use to go do these kinds of activities. And so, though we're not doing the flyabout here, I would tell you we got a lot of good data, both about our ability to go do this kind of function, not just on the Russian side, but what it would take on our side to go do it, and with the rest of the partnership. So, again, I don't see it as wasted time, wasted effort, and if we ever needed to go do something with a Soyuz and capture some additional engineering data related to something that may be going on outside the vehicle, we'll have to assess that at that time.
Yeah. Jeremiah, Denise has a question over here.
Denise Chow at space.com. A question for Kenneth. You mentioned that this is a unique opportunity that you have here, and that given the layout of the flight plan moving forward, it probably won't match up where you have all the visiting vehicles here at the same time. And I know from an operational and risk standpoint, it makes sense to accept the decision, but I was just wondering if you could comment on maybe your disappointment or the disappointment of other of the flight control members.
Okay, sure. You know, this is very much a can-do team, and I'm not talking about the NASA team. I'm not talking about the ops team. I'm talking about the entire partnership. If you look at the last 10, 11 years that we've been operating on orbit, this team, you know, thrives on challenges, and this was something that, again, we were asked to go take a look at. It was relatively late. It was different than what our nominal plan was, and the first reaction is, how are we going to do this? And then everybody steps back, they take a breath, and the next thing you know, here come the options and here come the thoughts, and so you know, people start knocking down the walls and figure out how to make things happen. And again, we do that all in the context of our risk management processes that help make sure that we're asking all the right questions. And so I think even on the Russian side, you know, this is not necessarily what they wanted the outcome to be. And so is there disappointment? Sure, I think so. I think that this was going to be something that a lot of us were looking to pull off, just because, again, it would have been something really, really good for the program. It would have been good for a lot of people to have this image and this available. So. Yeah, there's a little bit of disappointment, but like I told the team at the MMT this morning, you know, we have to respect the fact that you know, it's the right thing to go do and ask the hard questions, and sometimes the hard questions bring about answers that you know, may not be what everybody wants, but it may be the right thing to go do. And again, I had absolute 100% consensus in the room there.
Robert.
Hi, Robert Perlman with CollectSpace.com. You mentioned, well, this was a late decision or a late idea to come forward for the flyabout, and not to play what if, but if there had been more time, if this had been proposed well before Discovery launched, do you believe that the partners would have been able to become comfortable with the idea, or was it not a timing issue?
I would tell you it's only a timing issue in that that we didn't get a chance to talk about this before that Soyuz launched. Had it made a difference in the Roscosmos position, potentially, if they would have had a chance to know this was out there and that we had this potential to do this, you know, through their own engineering test programs and their train and fly type mentality similar to ours, you know, they may have gotten to the point where you know, they would have felt more comfortable with this vehicle doing this. But I would tell you at this point, you know, it's a new vehicle. They are just like we are in that they want to be very guarded with the way they do things, and we test our stuff before we fly it. We test it in a way that we intend to use it on orbit. And in this instance, we were as a partnership talking about doing something that they hadn't tested and done before. So I would tell you that. It wasn't just you know, a week kind of thing. I think we were probably talking about a much longer period than that, that we should have been talking about this. And quite frankly, we wouldn't have had that discussion back then because we didn't know exactly where the shuttle was going to end up. We, again, had a window of opportunity here that was created with the shuttle ending up in February. So, again, it is what it is, and we move forward from here.
Okay, let's go down to the Kennedy Space Center now for questions.
Hello, Marcia Dunn of the Associated Press. One fly-around question and then one non-related. For Mr. Todd, was it the fly-around portion itself that was the concern of the Russian engineers, or was it the redocking part of it? I'm just wondering what was their concern area of about this whole thing.
Sure, Marcia. I don't think, again, at least the level of detail that was given to me wasn't broken down by the profile, that this particular part of the profile is what was giving them fits. I think in general, it's just this idea that that we are going to go build a vehicle. There's what we're going to ask it to do. We're going to go train our crews to go do this. And with this first vehicle, there's just some level of discomfort in straying too far from the plan that they already had in place, and not having the right amount of time with the vehicle to go get comfortable, and with the crew as well. So again, I think that what we're dealing with here is just it's a new vehicle. It's got new systems on it, and so there's some level of comfort that they need to gain before they're going to be willing to entertain these kinds of options.
All right, thank you. And for Mr. Korth, when they enter Leonardo later today, will they have the usual protective gear, goggles, face masks, that sort of thing?
Yeah, that's part of our standard protocol for entering any new vehicle the first time it shows up. And even though Leonardo, as it was formerly called, PMM, formerly known as Leonardo, has a history, I think it was like 7 times we've flown it on the orbiter. It's been reconfigured, got new MMOD, micrometeoroid protection, other things we've done to it. So for all intents and purposes, it is a new vehicle, so we'll treat it the same way.
Okay, I think that's it down at the Kennedy Space Center. We have reporters on the phone bridge, and first up on the phone bridge is Irene Klotz.
Thanks very much. I have a couple questions. The first is, with the addition of PMM and not including the shuttle's mass, what's the current mass of the space station now?
Somewhere around 900,000 pounds, I believe, is the number I heard.
Thank you. And the other thing concerning the flyabout, although the picture won't be the same, is can't you get what engineering data you need during the shuttle's fly around before it leaves?
Is your question, are we still going to do the fly around with the shuttle and get some engineering data there? Oh, certainly, absolutely. We're going to still at least get the data we would normally capture with a shuttle fly around, and go do the normal post-flight analysis that we would do with that imagery. You bet.
Thanks. And I had one other one. Although this brings to the end the USS pressurized modules for station, I believe there's still 1 or 2 more coming from Russia. Do either of you have any updates on what might still be coming for a station? Well,
there's the MLM that's still in the queue. Our Russian partners are working on it. Irina, that's the only one that I know of that they're currently active and working on. There may be others. I just don't have that information with me here, and potential launch dates and all that. We can certainly try to get that to you, though.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on the phone bridge, James Dean.
Thank you, Rob. James Dean from Florida today. Mr. Todd, I wonder, you've been referring to the Soyuz as a new vehicle. Could you discuss at all what is new and different about this particular Soyuz? And are you surprised that concern wasn't raised much earlier in the process? It seemed like it really came down to the last day before all of a sudden that was the reason for down.
James, I will tell you that there's some new avionics systems. There's new computers associated with this particular Series 700 vehicle. As far as what this means to us, or as we work through the process, I would tell you in my initial discussions with the Russians, they brought this up. This was not new information. There was no surprise to anybody in the entire partnership that the Russians were having these types of discussions. Again, every day you're working in low Earth orbit is an exercise in risk management. It is by nature what we do. And so no matter what task is in front of us, we're always asking the what ifs. And so there's no doubt in my mind that the Russians, as soon as we brought this up, again, started their own discussions internally and going through their own risk management process to try to understand what level of comfort they could get with this. And they were very open with us about this, and we had discussions to that regard. But we the rest of the partnership really needed to let them conclude their part of the process. That needed to happen, you know, it is their vehicle. It would been their commander performing the function, and so from the standpoint of it being a surprise, it absolutely was not a surprise. They needed to go do their own internal process, and that just took some amount of time, and we just got that conclusion this morning.
Okay, thanks. And I wondered if you might be able just to elaborate a little bit more on how that +1 day will be used, since it seems like transfer is well on its way and ahead of schedule. And finally, also, if there's any of the EVA cats and dogs that you could specify or highlight occurring tomorrow that are you know, important activities, but just sort of activities that they'll be performing.
I can say the prime use right now of this extra day is going to be outfitting of the new PMM. The current timeline that we had going into the mission really barely got us into the PMM. Got a couple of big items out with the intent of gathering as much packing foam and packing structure to throw away in the HTV. That's a big program objective. You know, we got a lot of good stuff out of HTV, and the other objective of HTV was to bring home a lot of the packing trash that we expected to come up on this mission. So adding a day, the equipment that's brought up in PMM, there is a tremendous amount of things. It's packed to the gills, and there are many, many, many man crew hours of packing, restow, and reorganization. So adding a day and having more folks to help with that task tremendously helps out the station and the stage process. So we're going to intend to use it to help out, put a dent in the restow of PMM.
Okay, next up, Charles Atkinson.
Yes, good evening. Charles Atkinson with SpaceLaunchNews.com and Examiner.com. Mr. Todd, I'm interested if you could talk a little bit about Russia's going to keep 3 cosmonauts on board going into 2012 at least, while the U.S. has 2 Americans, and there's going to be JAXA and ESA vying for that 6th position. As far as an international community, what is the interest in JAXA in Europe seeing one of their astronauts staying on board in a more permanent residence?
Well, clearly, certainly they have a lot of interest. I mean, this is, again, it's an international space station with a crew of 6, so they definitely are wanting their astronauts on board. They have utilization objectives for the space station, and certainly it's a great source of pride for them if they can have one of their civilians aboard. And so you know, clearly they would like to be aboard and doing science for their nation. So there's a great interest in doing that, and that's something that we have to balance as a partnership going forward.
But does it seem to you that Russia may have more of a controlling stance here, having 3 cosmonauts?
Well, clearly, again, it's a Russian segment and a USOS segment, and those agreements to split the crew assignments, that's been in place for a very long time. If there's any thoughts about changing that, again, that's going to be discussions that'll be held at a much higher level for sure.
Okay, thank you.
And last on the phone bridge, Jim Gardner. Is Jim still there? Okay, we don't hear him, so we'll go back to the Kennedy Space Center. I believe Marcia Dunn has a follow-up.
Yes, one follow-up for anyone on the panel. I'm wondering, do you have the latest percentage for completion of the space station, both interior and outside?
I do not, Marcia. I can get that for you. I meant to get that before I came over here, and I just didn't get it. So, but I will run that down for you and make sure Rob has it.
Okay. think we're back here now for any follow-ups. No follow-ups, so let's close with a couple of programming notes. We're on Rev E of the mission television schedule. That will be updated as developments warrant throughout the rest of the mission. The current mission TV schedule reflects the extended mission. A series of hometowner media interviews will be seen on NASA television with a variety of crew members at 3:23 p.m. Central Time today. That'll be with King TV in Seattle, KTRK TV here in Houston, and Como TV in Seattle. The crew's initial entry into the permanent multipurpose module, as you heard, will be later this afternoon, planned just before 6 p.m. Central Time today, perhaps a bit earlier than that. And the crew's sleep period begins at 8:23 p.m. Central Time this evening, just before the first airing of our flight day highlights at 9 p.m. Central Time. Those highlights to be replayed every hour on the hour throughout the course of the night. The ISS Orbit 3 flight director, Chris Edelin, will provide his update on planning activities from console early Wednesday morning at 2:40 a.m. Central Time, and the wake-up call for the crew to begin Flight Day 7 and preparations for the second spacewalk of the flight is set for 4:23 a.m. Central Time tomorrow morning. You can follow all the activities on both the shuttle and the station side of the house on our website at www.nasa.gov. With that, we'll call it a briefing and go back to mission coverage. Thanks very much.